to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much.
Wait till 6. It's in the opening statement there. I will say we're scheduled to start at 6 o'clock, so we'll wait just a couple moments so that all the technical gadgets are ready. So, can you hear me okay, candidates? Okay. I'll speak up. Is that better? All right. Welcome to tonight's forum for Jefferson City mayoral candidates, sponsored by the Jefferson City News Tribune and the Jefferson City Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm Gary Castor, managing editor of the Jefferson City News Tribune, and I'll serve as moderator of tonight's forum. Prior to tonight, the candidates have been advised the rules of the forum. Tonight's forum will include a series of opening statements, general questions for all the candidates, a series of random individual questions, and a lightning round of pop-up questions, and then they'll be given closing statements. 15 minutes before tonight's forum, the candidates were given the questions I'll be asking for the first round of questioning. In this round, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to respond to each of the 5 questions asked. The order by which they respond will change with each question. For the second round of questions, none of the candidates have received the questions in advance. In this round, each candidate will be asked a random question and will be given 2 minutes to respond. Any and all remaining candidates who wish to rebut or answer that same question are given 1 minute to respond. We ask the audience to refrain from expressing your support or opposition to a candidate by applause or making noise during the forum, as well as refraining from using a flash if you're taking photographs. And now let me introduce the candidates. In alphabetical order, Bob Scrivener, current 3rd Ward Councilman and President Pro Tem. Leonard Steinman, who's previously run for Governor, U.S. Congress, Jefferson City Mayor, and Cole County Western District Commissioner. Carrie Turgeon, former 4th Ward Councilwoman. We're going to skip Edie for a moment because alphabetized. Roy would be next. Roy Wiesman, former councilman, representing the 1st and 3rd wards at different times. And Edie Vogel, former 2nd Ward councilwoman and former member of the Parks and Recreation Commission. There's a 6th candidate for mayor, Richard Groner, who was unable to attend tonight's forum. The order of the opening and closing statements were determined before the forum by drawing lots. Each candidate will be given 1 minute for an opening statement. Roy will be giving the first opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. My name is Roy Wiesman. I'm a former city councilman, represented the east side, the 1st Ward, for 4 years. Later on, I represented the West End for 4 years. I've been Mayor Pro Tem, Chairman of the Public Works Committee, Chairman of the Senior Citizens Committee, also was Chairman of the USS Jefferson City Committee. Is this thing on? How about this? Okay. Anyway, I I think that to be the mayor of Jefferson City would be, in my opinion, you need to be an ambassador. You need to be the face of the city. I think that we have to actively go out and seek jobs. It's something that we in dire need. I get 30 seconds. And in the process of doing such, this job is going to have, that's it? That was quick. Thank you, Mark.
Bob, you're next.
Was expanded as General Manager of Missouri Farm Bureau Merchandising and completed as one of more than 50,000 employees of one of the largest insurance companies in the USA. My experience has taught me that communication skills are essential. To be successful, one must be able to work with those with whom you agree and those with whom you disagree. That's why, as mayor, I will bring representatives of various groups in the city and county together as one community. Only by working together can we move our community forward. Our next mayor should be experienced in every aspect of business, from the smallest to the largest, as an employee, as a manager, as an owner, to lead us in creating a business-friendly environment in Jefferson City so that existing businesses can grow and new businesses will choose our community. I am that leader. I ask for your vote for me as mayor on April 7th.
Leonard.
Good evening. My name is Leonard Steinman. I'm running for the office of mayor for the city of Jefferson. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I was born in Jefferson City, graduated from Jefferson City Senior High in 1970. I have lived in several other states during my 63 years of life, but Jefferson City has always been my home, and I'll always come back home. I'm a disabled American veteran. I served in the Missouri National Guard and then the United States Navy. I have had numerous jobs in my lifetime, and because of that varied experience, I can bring a new vision of the job of mayor. I belong to several service organizations. To name a few, I'm a life member of both the Disabled American Veterans Auxiliary. I served as a vice president of Jefferson City Veterans Council. I have been a member of the Cole County Sheriff's Posse. I also went with the River City Habitat for Humanity to Joplin, Missouri to help build new homes and clean up after the tornado. I'm an open book, and I feel that our city government should also be open to the citizens for which it serves. I will be working for you. You are the employer, I would be the employee. A lot of elected officials tend to forget that they are employees of the citizens who elected them to the office. It is time that attitude has changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie.
Thank you. I'm Carrie Turgeon. I'm running for mayor because I love Jefferson City and I want to make this community better. And I'm the one to do that. I'm a third-generation small business owner. My parents, who are here tonight, named Carrie's Hallmark Shop after me when I was 4 years old. That was in 1976. Before that, my grandfather had a shoe shine and hat cleaning business and a dry cleaners. So I grew up in the family business. I know what it means to work hard, and I know what it means to take care of the customer. I went to Jefferson City High School. I'm a graduate of Missouri State University with a business management degree, and I serve on the Missouri State University Board of Governors. So I know firsthand how major university interacts and works with their city, county, and state, and I want to make that happen here. I want to be the one to build those partnerships, and I'm enthusiastic and energetic, and I would be honored to serve as your next mayor. Thank you.
Edie.
I am Edie Vogel. I've lived here all my life. I own a business with my family. I'm a nurse. I'm running for mayor because I have experience, I qualify, and I care about this community. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's begin our opening round of questions. As I said before, we drew lots beforehand. The first question will begin with Roy. You'll have 2 minutes to respond. Some would say Jefferson City needs to grow, economically and or population-wise. Do you believe this to be true? If so, how would you achieve it? How would you achieve that growth? And if not, why do you see growth as something undesirable?
I do see the need for Jefferson City to grow economically and, of course, in the population-wise, but not to the extent where we're going to outgrow our infrastructure. I think it has to be brought along in a progressive, constant nature. In the process of doing this, to allow Jefferson City to grow, we're going to have to actively seek new employers, bring them into to Jefferson City, and that's going to be something that's going to be done on a hands-on process. We're going to have to use the same technique to some extent that the car dealerships use as we go out of town and we're trying to solicit industry to come in. What can we do to earn your business? And I propose an industrial commission to work in concert with the Chamber of Commerce, and that's people that are going to be from people that are either in management, or they're going to be such people as ABB, Unilever, Scholastics, Modine, even state government, and not, of course, forsaking mom and pop stores. People that are conversant in construction, finance, marketing. As a result, as we get a prospect, we have people that will come to town, and they're going to be able to meet and greet them, and it's going to be people that somewhat of their counterparts. So they're going to be on the same page and be able to converse with them. And basically, we're going to have to schmooze them a little bit to get them in Jeff City, and I'm prepared to do that. You see, you understand, this job is not going to be, it's not just not going to be an avocation, it's going to be a vocation. It's going to be a job that's going to be, some people, I mean, we're all running for mayor here. I hope the understanding is that you better be prepared to work 40 to 50 hours a week. I am prepared to work that long in regard to looking at this as a new business. So when you start a new business, you got to bust it, and I'm prepared to do that.
Bob?
Thank you. For the last several years, Jefferson City has used the Chamber of Commerce as its economic development tool, and we partnered with the county to provide funding to the chamber. I think that's been a plan or a model that has worked for the city. I think it needs to be tweaked, and so one of the first things that I would recommend is that we take a look at how we can better target, how we can better utilize that model. I think we've had success in the past where we've had businesses that were already located in the city, and we were able to attract businesses that were either suppliers or recipients of those businesses' products and services. So I would think that one of the things that we would look to do is ask the chamber to target those types of businesses. I would look to leverage our ability for training at Lynn State Tech. I know they do a lot of training for existing businesses, and I know they have provided opportunity to train companies that wanted to locate here as well, train their, and that's been an attractive thing. I think we need to leverage Lincoln University. Having a university in our community is an asset that a lot of communities don't have, and I don't think that we have utilized that asset to the extent that we can. And so I would look to work with the president and staff and students of Lincoln University to see what kind of collaborations that we might have that would be attractive to bring other businesses and to help our existing businesses grow.
So as a follow-up to that question, then, do you believe that growth is something to be achieved, or?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. I meant to answer that to begin with. Yes, I absolutely do. Revenues are flat at best,
Okay.
and we need to grow them.
Thank you. Leonard?
To begin with, this is a bedroom community. Most of the employees that come in here are from other communities. We have city employees that live outside of the city and want to jurisdict the city. And the people that live in the city are getting frustrated with it, being told what to do by people that don't want to comprehend or pay the taxes that they're receiving. As far as growth goes, if we can't take care of what we got already, we don't need to be like Columbia. If you can't take care of what you have, it's not business attitude. You take care of what you got. If you can't take care of it, you don't add wages that other people can't match to. $44,000 a year to start out with as a city employee, driving around in a pickup truck with air conditioning while everybody else is sitting around trying to figure out how to make a living. We got to learn how to stop spending money we don't have, and we got to stop getting welfare money from the federal government, because actually it's our tax dollars we're giving back to ourselves. It doesn't work. Thank you.
Carrie?
Thank you. Yes, I do believe growth is desirable, and population growth is important, that we look at areas that could potentially be annexed, but there are neighborhoods out there, people saying they want to be part of the community, they want to be part of the city. Those are people we should be talking about. Slow, planned growth that's smart. I also believe population-wise that our schools have a huge impact on the desirability of people living here or relocating here. We don't want to lose population by people looking at districts outside of the city. We also don't want to lose people who are looking at mid-Missouri region when they could be looking at Jefferson City. So those are partnerships we can form, forming partnerships with neighborhoods that are interested in becoming part of the city, and partnerships with the school and how we can make that happen. I also feel economically that state employees are a key asset to our community. They should not be among the lowest paid and compensated in the country. And as a state capital, having such a large state population, I believe our city and council should have a voice in working with our state leaders, saying this is a very important part of our community, and state employees alone are a huge economic growth aspect. Some of our other largest employers we should be working with as well, such as Lincoln University. We often think of them as a school and not necessarily a huge piece of economic development. So those are all ways that we can continue to grow. And I also feel that for our existing businesses, business retention is key. We see a lot of businesses that fail or struggle, and I would really like to see us have an active role in partnering with new businesses and a few existing, and make sure that they know we are there as a city, and how can we make growth and development continue. And for new businesses, we should work with developers and make it easy and make them want to do business in our capital city. Thank you.
Can we turn on the air conditioning? People in here are sweating really hard.
I will ask if it's possible to cool the room down a little bit. That would be great. Edie. All right.
To answer these questions, they'll be simple for me because I don't have a big crystal ball to predict anything. So the first one would be, yes, Jefferson City needs to grow. Yes, the economy and the population kind of need to be together on that. How would you achieve growth? Well, I believe right now we're in a good process of doing that with the opening of St. Mary's Hospital on the 179 corridor, and I see that as a big growth development for our area. We can't go north because of the river. We can go south a little bit, but you must take into consideration planned volunteer annexation. Been down that road when you force something on people. It was a big fight. Don't want to do that again. I just feel like we have our infrastructure to be taken care of with the population we have. I serve on St. Mary's Auxiliary Board and was told by the powers that be there that they're expecting 1,000 births this year at St. Mary's. So there's your growth right there. Hopefully they're citizens that live here in Jefferson City and will become our future for all of us old people who are ready to say, well, it's almost time for us to go. So these questions are very important. Planned growth with volunteer annexation, the 179 corridor, the opening of St. Mary's Hospital, and then the increase in size of Capital Region. Those are all growth things, and hopefully they'll contribute to a good standard of living here in Jefferson City. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we're ready for our second question. What are 3 essential services the city should provide its residents? How would you rate the city's performance in providing those services in the past? Bob, you'll start that question.
Okay. Obviously, police and fire protection is probably the one that comes to mind for most people initially. I know when we've done surveys in the past, it's always 2 of the highest rated things. infrastructure, your roads and sidewalks and means for getting around in the community. If we don't have good roads, if we don't have the means to get for people to get to work, get to receive health care, shop, play, do the things that they need to do, then our city is not doing its job. And then the third thing, which I think is an important service and for many people is an essential service, is transit. There are a number of people in our community that absolutely rely on our transit service. If they didn't have public transit, I'm not sure how they would get around. And so while it's a difficult thing to try to right size and get and provide the services that people need, because transit systems never are self-funding. They never bring in enough revenue to fund themselves. So we end up having to have a fairly substantial subsidy. So it becomes a challenge for us to fund it to the extent that we probably would like to, because it's funded from the same source as police and fire and public works and personnel. So that's always a challenge for us. But I would rate those as 3 essential services.
Leonard.
City streets is first. Sewers the next. Our sewers are falling apart. I'm one of those victims that got hit with a sewer tragedy about 8 years ago. I run a lot of my stuff that I had downstairs that was mementos, family pictures, and things like that. Property. There's only so much space in the city. I walked this city many times, many years. You cannot replace property. Annexation is not going to be the word for it, because we still cannot annex if we cannot keep what we got in the establishment. And this is the problem. They keep wanting to spend money on annexation. Let's take care of the people that are here, and the ones that can't keep their maintenance up on their houses, let's buy them out, sell them to the realtors like they're supposed to be sold to, or put them on the auction block, and let's use that property and make it essential instead of just taking it and using it for our sewer and having to take care of something that's not paying back. Yes, we collect a little bit of city taxes off of it, but we're not making enough revenue off of that for the essential. And if you think about it, that's what we got to do. We got to take care of what we have. We can't just go out and grab more and more if we can't take care of it. And that's been the problem with the city of Jefferson since 1964 that I know of. Thank you.
Carrie.
Thank you. A safe community is my top priority, so my top 3 essential services would be police, fire, and public works. With the police department and fire department, we must make sure that they have the necessary equipment, personnel, and training to keep our community safe. With public works and infrastructure, I know if you look at snow removal, we are constantly looked at as an example from other communities of what a great job we do with that and how important that is. And we just wake up and our streets are clean, but you think about the personnel that work so hard to get us there. And also code enforcement falling under public works is important, because as a council person, that was one of my toughest things, was trying to find a balance between neighbors and code enforcement and trying to solve code issues within the community, because it affects neighborhoods, values, and quality of life when neighbors are not following the code. So those are very important. The question asked to rate the city's performance in providing these services, and I think that's something that public safety, especially police and fire, we should never take for granted. We're very lucky. We have a safe community and wonderful departments with police and fire, so we want to make sure they have the resources they need, and that would be a top priority of mine, because we never want to take that service for granted and having a safe community. Thank you.
Edie.
oblige me with maybe an extra one here. First one would be openness. The city exists for the service to the citizens of Jefferson City. Tonight, we have a big crowd here. I'm hoping that every council meeting, you would all feel like you could come here and sit in this chamber, and if we're here till midnight, and we would listen to your concerns. I rate that a number 2. 2. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 2 of what we're doing now. Police and fire, I rate that an 8. I think we have a good police department. We have a fire department that last couple of weekends were busy all day long answering the call, and that's important. Infrastructure is also important because we have an old town and we have old roads, and take a look at the High Street Viaduct and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's kind of fallen apart. That's a main thoroughfare to our city. So we must keep that in mind. And I'm going to add my 4th one, small businesses. Small businesses in Jefferson City, and in fact in the whole United States, are the backbone of everything that happens. So I'm adding that on my own. It's not part of the question. Small businesses in our community are very important.
Okay, thank you. Roy?
Gary, in regard to the services, quite obviously, some of us are on the same page here. Being a former policeman, and I know the importance of that. I have the experience with that. We have, in my opinion, we have a very good police department. It's imperative that we continue with good training. They have good equipment. They have pretty good pay. And also, I think an addendum to that would be you surely need a good attitude to go along with that. And I think that's a product of good leadership. Also, I have a very high regard for our fire department. I mean, they do a great job. I spend some time with these guys. Not only are they great workers and good professionals, but they're really a delight to be with. And I express that. Obviously, the infrastructure. We have, walking the streets here the last couple of months, we're headed for some problems. I'm not only talking about, as Edie just spoke of, the viaduct, but we're talking about our streets are starting to really get in some bad shape. And I don't know exactly if that's due to I noticed that a lot of our potholes are very, very close to the curb. That could be the product perhaps of the garbage trucks. I'm not sure, but I mean, there's a lot of streets that are in pretty bad shape, and we are really going to have to attack that aggressively. So that would be my priorities, and to keep a safe, obviously a very safe city. We're very fortunate because we have got a city that is relatively low in crime, and I would like to believe that's due to the aggressiveness of our police department. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our third question. We'll begin with Leonard. The city's lodging tax has collected roughly $2.2 million since voters approved the increase in February 2011. While the last round of conference center discussions failed to produce a plan, many believe the concept deserves to be completed and see no other use for the expected $9 million the lodging tax will raise. Others believe the money can be used for anything that promotes tourism. Do you believe the funds should be used for anything outside of a conference center, and if so, why?
The voters voted for one thing, and that's what it should be. The voters voted for it. The council didn't, the mayor didn't. Let's use it for what it was voted for. And as far as the conference center goes, there's other ways we can get this conference center built faster, but nobody wants to listen with the council. I've discussed it and discussed it and discussed it, and I'm tired of discussing it with people that don't want to listen. I've been in communities, and I have bought bonds in a community in Indianapolis. Market Square Arena was one of them. And we got that built without having to worry about that. And the banks are just waiting for a municipal bond to be appropriated. If we appropriate a municipal bond like we should to build this, we could get it built and we make it a glamorous, beautiful conference center, and we can pay for it without having to dole out the money to the two groups that was here that wanted nothing but to build a building on their property and not take care of it. That's my feelings. Thank you.
So to clarify, in my head, you were saying yes, you feel that the money can be used for something other than a conference center?
No, the money should be used for the conference center. It was
Okay.
voted by the people.
All right, thank you. Carrie?
Thank you. I prefer to stay true to the voters and the original intention of the tax that was passed, which was to use the funds for a future facility. And it's not until I would feel certain that we have not done that I would look at other options. The voter's word is very important, and I would want to follow that lead and make sure that we've done all that we can. There are some options where we should start looking and partnering with the state, with other entities that can benefit from this and be partners with us, private developers, the hoteliers. As I look at the process, and I was involved in that last time, we did not partner with the state. We did not meet with hoteliers and meeting planners to see what the needs were and what we could do to make it successful. And I think that's very important. We can't just say we want a conference center and then backtrack to make that happen. If we want something to happen, we need to start with a plan and a vision and get the right partners on board in the early stages to see how we can all work together and how it can benefit them. Because it was clear we could not do a conference center on our own, and the only way that would happen is if we partner with the state, hoteliers, other entities, and private development to see how that can be made possible. So to answer, I would like to remain true to the original intention, and I say flexible space too, because it may not be the traditional conference center, but it might be something that can benefit these partners in a way that would also benefit the city. And it's not something I would want to go in as mayor and say, let's complete this. I think there's a lot of partnerships that would have to happen in order to make this successful, and I'm ready to have those conversations. Thank you.
Edie?
Not opposed to a conference center. Feel like we beat it though to death with beat the conference center to death. Previous councils, when I served on the council, was the subject then. That's 8 years ago. Now the council that serves now has discussed it. I know we're collecting the money. I know the voters approved it. The last ballot issue in 2011 specifically talks and mentions in the last sentence of the ballot language tourism. So I think you have to consider that. If the people of Jefferson City want to pursue this conference center idea, I recommend they contact their council people and let's get the ball rolling again. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it. It's a tricky deal. I think private enterprises should have built it a long time ago if they thought it would be successful, and I see that we haven't had that done. So it's a very touchy subject. Not opposed. The money keeps growing. Council needs to make the decision of what they want to do with it.
Okay, thank you. Roy?
Touchy subject, Edie, you're right. That is probably the hottest subject in Jeff City. It's a very hot subject. I mean, it produces anger. People are, they get venomous, they get vituperous about it. I mean, they'll fight you for it. I was about to get thrown off out of a yard a couple of weeks ago, and I was starting to dance, do a little dance, you see, and he said he stood there with his hands on his hips, and he said, if you're for the conference center, he said, get off my property. And I said, oh, let's talk. But the point is that in the process of speaking to many people of Jefferson City right now are not ready for it as the way it's understood to be. They are not ready for this. If I was mayor, I would not move forward without much dialogue, without much town hall meetings. We have to have that, because if you move it forward as it is today, it's going to fracture the city right down the middle. It's going to be like Jefferson City Jays playing Helias football. I think it would create that kind of rancor. So as the way it is right now, I cannot go for it. I cannot endorse it. So yes, the private enterprise, that's a good way to go. But one thing that has to be considered, though, that I'm not for it the way it is, but the reason private enterprise probably hasn't done it, most of it obviously fails. So, but they also do not have the privilege of getting the residual of the sales tax. But as it stands right now, I'm against it.
Bob?
there's three things that I've identified as having a problem or is lacking in Jefferson City. One's communication. One is the fact that we don't work as one community, and the third one is that we're not doing economic development. So when you talk about the conference center and how the money should be spent and so on and so forth, the question is not whether we need a conference center. The question is not whether we spend the money on something else. The question should be what's going to help Jefferson City grow. And if economic development is going to occur because we spend the money on a conference center, then that's what we should do. If economic development is going to grow because we spend the money on sports tourism or we spend it on something else, then that's where it should be spent. But I shouldn't make that decision. The council shouldn't make that decision. We should come together as one community and discuss this and decide where we want to go and bring the leaders of the various business organizations, the meeting planners, the hoteliers, whoever, but get in a room together and figure out the direction that we ought to go, and with the ultimate goal being that we're going to have economic development. And that money is just sitting in a bank account right now, and it's not benefiting anyone. It's earning maybe $500 a month in interest. So if I'm elected mayor, we're going to get people together and we're going to find out what's going to help this community grow. And we're going to put the work in and do the work necessary. We're going to communicate with each other, and we're going to decide what we should do with that money, whether it's a conference center, whether it's something else.
Okay. Our fourth question, Carrie, will start with that. Recent conference center discussions seem to center on two sticking points. The project needed an infusion of $2 million to build the $11 million conference center that city leaders were looking for, and the location of the proposed center. Do you support construction of a conference center? Where do you believe it must be built if we build one? Lastly, where do you find the $2 million to fill the funding gaps? I'm going to ask each one of you to answer each of those questions. So be specific for me, please.
Thank you. The first question, do I support construction of a conference center? Yes, if it's done right. I would never bring a divided city or a divided council to this subject. It needs to be something explored together. Like I said before, we did not have a community vision, and we were divided last time, and that's why it failed to produce an outcome. And I would start from square one with the partners, with the state, with the county, with the city, with the private development, and see if that could happen. So yes, if it's done right, and unify the city and have a community vision for where a conference center would fit in our community, and make sure that we are on the same page. Second question, where do you believe it must be built? Just as it was shown when the voters approved the lodging tax, a location near our capital is best. It's about showcasing our assets, what brings people to our beautiful city. There are sites near our capital, so we should continue to explore those. The third question, where would you find the $2 million to fill the funding gap? And that was specific to the project that was that failed, so that may not be the case when the next project is proposed. So in general, I would say that whatever funding gap may be, we need to explore what options are available. I do believe there are some creative options. There is some incentives that can be offered. There's some private development that could be brought to the table that wasn't in the other plan, and also things like a community improvement district. I know that there's an area around the Capitol that would be a site for a CID where there are taxing purposes. There are a lot of those type of projects that we might be able to utilize, but until we have something that the whole community can rally behind and support, we're not going to get those kind of things. So I would really propose bringing something forward as a community, get a vision, and make something happen together. Thank you.
Thank you. Edie.
Okay. If my memory serves me correctly, the city council has already pumped in $1 million of city funds to the Missouri State Penitentiary redevelopment process to take away mold that has grown over there. So to me, that's a big investment, because right now I see the MSP I know it's not the conference center, but bear with me just a minute. I see that as our development plan here for tourism. So we've already put $1 million into that. But the bad point about that is we don't own the property. We have an agreement, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, and anybody can do that, but I think that that agreement is centered on the $1 million that the city has already pumped into the mold abatement at Missouri State Penitentiary. Okay, so that kind of nullifies the $11 million conference center leaders were looking for in location of the proposed center. Once again, I'm not opposed to it, but I think it's just a moot point until everybody gets it on the same page. Where you believe it must be built, I don't care. Where would you find the $2 million to fill the funding gap? I don't have an answer for that. I don't know. But like I say, we've already infused $1 million of the city coffers into the Missouri State Penitentiary. Maybe we need to work on that as our big investment for future with tourism and the so-called conference center. Thank you.
Thank you. Roy?
Let's see. Right now, as I earlier stated, I'm opposed to it right now, but I'm going to answer these questions. All right. The recent conference center discussion seemed to center on two sticking points. The project needed an infusion of $2.2 million. Do I support construction of a conference center? I would, if we had the citizens behind us. Being a successful leader is based upon the citizens who support you. I think before we, initially 2 months ago, this was a moot point. I mean, I don't know how this all got fired up again, but here we are. But we obviously have got to work in concert with the city. If we don't have the citizen support behind us, how can we move forward with this? I would hate to think that we're arrogant enough or we're hubris, that we're smarter than the people that we're representing, and as a result, that we know what's good for them. I think that before we move forward with any of this, we have got to impart knowledge, we have got to impart information, and we have to be on the same page. And as a result, if the citizens of Jefferson City are behind us, I mean a large percentage are behind us, it would be a go. Then we could get into the specificities of it. But right now, I think, as far as I'm concerned, I think that's something that's still out there, and it has to be dealt with the citizens of Jefferson City.
I'm going to take just another minute. Okay. So to answer the other two questions, though, if it were, do you have a preference as to where it would be built?
If we did build it, I would think downtown area probably, or perhaps as we move forward with Missouri State Penitentiary, we're looking at some there's some private developers that are interested in that. They're probably, I don't know if they're talking to them specifically. I heard they were. That would be a good place for it, right? There's 147 acres there. I think it would blend in quite well with that particular area. And the other question is,
and again, if you had the opportunity to build one, how would you address the funding gap?
Private enterprise, state, and we've got $52,000 a month coming in. I think we could coordinate these three factors and move forward with that.
Okay. Bob?
Like I said earlier, I'm for economic development. And if someone can show me that economic development would occur because we had a conference center, then I would try to, I guess, use my position as mayor to inform and communicate with citizens and hopefully help them to agree that it was something that we needed to do. I wouldn't be in favor of not doing it if we didn't have consensus that it should, wouldn't be in favor of doing it if we didn't have consensus that it needed to be done. For the record, I do want to say that the money that was spent on the mold remediation ended up being about $750,000. As far as where it needs to be built, I was on the record as saying that my preference would have been downtown when we were considering the other locations, all things being equal. But they weren't equal. There was one proposal that in my mind clearly was better than the other. I felt like the other proposal was incomplete, and I don't think that we should ever burden ourselves with something that has the opportunity to not succeed. And so I thought we were better off to do nothing than to do something that might not have been as good as it could have been. Where would I find the money? Well, if we're truly one community, I always felt that the county should have probably participated in that. Certainly the state should probably participate. The state would benefit, the county would benefit. The funding is, that's something I think we can find, but certainly I don't know where it's at right now. I will say this, our funds have gone from an average of about $45,000 a month to about $50,000 a month. So that's growing, which means that we can fund a lot larger bond than we could have before. So some of that gap will be filled by that growth in lodging taxes.
Okay. To ask you directly, though, did you have a location that you are you flexible in the location, or?
It's funny, we were arguing over downtown and the mall. My preference would have been the prison site. I think it would make a great anchor on the end of Capitol Avenue, and we could develop Capitol Avenue into a historic development, and we have the Capitol on one end and the prison on the other end, and I just think that would be best. But that would be my personal preference. That was never a choice for me.
Okay. Thank you. Leonard.
We made a mistake in 1982-83. Mr. Hammond, Mr. Marriott come in here. They were going to build it for free. We wouldn't even had to have done what we did. But our city council forefathers didn't even think about it. Yes, I'm a little older than a lot of them, and I paid a lot more attention even though I didn't live here. Preference, where it's going to go, Broadway Street, because it's a blight. When people get on a CB, and they still get on a CB, look at that dump. And they're looking at the Capitol, and they're looking at the blight of Broadway Street. If we would work with Central Trust Bank and make an offer with Central Trust Bank where their parking's at, we could make one of the most glorious, most advantaged places in the world. This is the mid of the United States. A lot of people don't seem like that. I go to a lot of conferences all over the United States for what I do with DAV. I've been asked, we have DAV meetings here every year at the Plaza Hotel. We don't need to have a hotel. All we need is the conference center. We have enough rooms in the city of Jefferson to take care of 6,500 people. 6,500 people in a conference center is a big conference center. So let's think about it that way, and let's don't spend money wastefully trying to put rooms and compete against the people that are in the market. This was voted on by the people. The people should be in charge of that money instead of sending it over there to take care of Jay Nixon's wannabe prison over there that belongs to the federal government, and he's trying to get it back up into shape so he can give it back to the federal government. Let's stop doing that and let the state take care of their own equity. Thank you.
As far as the funding gap, how would you address that?
I addressed that a while ago. Mutual funds. If we put out a municipal bonds and we have the people, instead of just having, well, we're going to have a barbecue for this, a car wash for that, if everybody just chip in together and we say, hey, we're going to build this conference center and we're going to do it exactly the way we want it built because we are the people, the citizens of Jefferson. And that's what a mayor should take in consideration. The sooner we get it built, the sooner we got more equity coming back in instead of just putting it out and restoring property that's not ours.
Thank you. All right, our fifth question begins with Edie. Some would say the current transportation system seems to be designed primarily to bring state workers to jobs downtown from 8 to 5 on Mondays through Fridays. And by this, I'm referring to the bus system, the transit system. Yes. I should be more specific in my question. I apologize. Well, good for you. What would you do to make our transit system more suitable for people who work at other jobs and for those who want the services on weekends and evenings?
I'll plead guilty to the bus system because I don't know what the ridership is of it. So I'm going to kind of leave that go. I think most people bring their cars to work. They don't ride on the buses. If I'm wrong, I stand corrected. Transportation system for the other people who live in the community and are trying to get to their jobs, very important. I mentioned at one of our other forums that I thought we need to look into the Uber, the transit system that I think the state legislature is discussing. I don't know that much about it, except I think it's a good idea. You'd have to pass all the sniff tests about people using it or the people that are providing it. Also, I don't have a problem with the city through grants, which is how they usually obtain buses, to find out if we can get smaller buses. Mr. Groner's not here tonight to defend himself, but Jefferson City's topography for a bus system is terrible because we're nothing but hills and valleys and dips and all that other stuff. So I think that we need to provide that service to the people that are looking for it, but we need to find other ways besides bus, or we also need to add on weekend bus service for people to get to where they want to go instead of having to get into a taxi cab and pay a lot of money. So I like Uber, and I like smaller buses, but we have, as a city, with the city council and people participating in it, we need to look at that issue very, very carefully.
Roy?
Public transportation, it's a high dollar item, but we have to have it. Realistically, the cost makes it a difficult question. Do we need expanded hours? Do we need expanded services? We need to find innovative ways to meet transit needs that are not being met today. For example, I wonder if it would be practical to provide on-demand van or small bus service, as Edie said, to high-demand areas, or after hours or on Saturday or Sunday. I'd be a strong advocate of finding ways to improve service to underserviced areas. One of the items that we spoke of at the Lincoln University at one of the forums, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, was that the students have a real need, and if we could provide service to them, bring them into town, take them home, take them back to the university, obviously the byproduct of that would be a residual of sales taxes they spent wherever they went, whether it be to clothiers or whether it be to restaurants or whatever. So I do believe we do really need to improve it. And as a result, I think smaller vans, smaller buses, I don't know if everybody's going to agree with that. I spoke to a guy briefly at the university, and he said he didn't think that was the way to go, but we're going to have to explore this. We're going to have to exhaust all avenues because there's a greater need right here, and we just have to provide that. And everything's on the table as far as I'm concerned. We have to have better bus services. The idea is how are we going to afford it. We're going to look at it very carefully and see what we can do about it to produce it.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
The issue, the issue of transit is so complex. When you talk about the size of buses and things like that, buses have they have lifespans. The larger buses have about a 17 or 18 year lifespan on average. The smaller buses have a 7 to 9 year lifespan. The city has drawn those lifespans out farther. And one thing that I've talked to transit folks about is trying to run buses longer and be sure that you utilize all the miles that are supposed to be available in that lifespan. But getting to your question, I believe that we need to create some kind of incentive for people who don't have to ride the bus to ride the bus. The problem is there's not a lot of public support as a majority, in my mind at least, for transit because people don't use it. They see these buses running up and down the street, and they don't personally use them. Oftentimes, there's not a lot of people on them, so it looks like a a service that's is really underutilized. So we need to figure out a way, either through incentives, working through the Office of Administration, maybe to try to get more state workers to ride the bus. I don't think there are that many that ride it, to be honest with you, but I think they should. I had back surgery in August. I used the bus 2 or 3 times, and it's a very convenient service to get downtown. It's a convenient service to get back to your home. Not for everyone, because the routes aren't all laid out the same, but on Boonville Road, where I live, very convenient. Coincidence, not because I'm a councilman. And evenings and weekends, I mean, we've struggled with that. I've been on the council for 7 years, and we've struggled every year. We have a deficit of over $1 million a year on transit now. And if we added evening service and weekend service, the deficit would just be larger. Is the community at large going to support that? We just did $1.2 million, I think it was, in budget cuts over the last 2 or 3 years because we had somewhat of a budget crisis. Where would we have found the money to support expanded transit? So I'm willing to have a conversation. In fact, I'm eager to have a conversation with the community and lay these things out. Most people don't know the inner workings and how this all works together, but we need to have a conversation in our community and let people know so that we can decide what to do about transit.
Okay. Thank you. Leonard.
If you didn't know, I used to own an outfit in Washington State called Royal Charters, and I used to own an outfit in Hawaii called Lahaina Transit. The government come in and took my Lahaina Transit away from me. I was making money off of it. They had it less than 6 months. They went broke. What people don't understand is you have a thing called a CDL qualified license, and you have to have an air brake for these large buses. You have to have physicals, you have to have this, you have to have that. Now, if we went to a 14-passenger van, and they make them where they're accessible for people that have disabilities, and you can also put a bus or bicycle rack on them, you don't have to have all that. Then you can hire people part-time instead of full-time, and you don't have to pay for the insurance for them to be employed. There's a lot of people looking for work in that category. Look in the paper. All you got to do is look in the paper. They're always looking. People are looking for work in that category. Part-time, people over 63, 64 years old that want a part-time job driving a van. Let's get rid of the big buses, because all they are doing is tearing up our streets, and there's no economical in it. And for instance, 4 years ago, they decided to take the bus system out of Ren's Addition and move it 5 blocks out of Ren's Addition, and most of the people in Ren's Addition ride the bus to the west side so they can go to work for that minimum wage job. And now they have to walk in the rain 5 blocks more to go to that. So they got to the point, well, I guess we'll just put our money together and buy a car. So you just lost yourself 45 riders a day. Thank you.
Carrie.
Thank you. So the question is, what would I do for those who want services on weekends and evenings? And I think that is important. At the same time, if we were to expand the service, there might be something else that we would have to delete. For example, if we added weekends and evenings, we might have to take away some other routes. So how would we balance that? It's all a balance because we have a certain limited amount of funds. So I think we would have to look at supply and demand and what routes are utilized the most. I know we've done a good job of trying, or the city has always utilized or examined routes, for example, with the new St. Mary's coming on board and where the bus riders are needing the highest demand. But we have to keep an eye on supply and demand and realize there's going to be a give and take if we do want to expand hours. I know you mentioned in the question the student population, and I think we need to be working and partnering with the schools. I know they're limited funding as well, but there are a lot of college students and Lincoln University students who are using the system and could use it more, so we need those conversations to be had. We haven't had those yet. Even with our local public schools, the only time that I remember really talking with the schools is when their tripper route after school was looked at being completely taken out of the budget, and the room was filled with supporters. So how can we utilize those supporters and say, if this route is important, how can we work with the schools and keep these routes, expand routes? It's all about partnerships and talking to these people, not just when they're threatened to be taken away. I feel like the last round in the budget, as I served on the council, when bus routes were talked about being taken out, there was a lot of momentum from a citizens group that wanted to meet, a citizens advisory group, and finally, I think a year later, they were finally given the chance to form a group. And I would like to hear their recommendations, the ones that utilize the service, and see what they can bring back to us on a regular basis and examine that, not just during budget time. We should be hearing from that group. There's an enthusiastic group, a lot of momentum. Let's listen to the people. And had come to committee meetings and weren't given a voice, so I'm glad finally a year later that they were allowed to speak. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes our 5 general questions rounds. We're going to take a 5-minute break and come back, and then we'll start with individual questions. Yeah.
You hear that one, Gary?
No, sir.
Turn around and look. Rules are rules are rules. Look at the t-shirts. I want them out of here. You make rules, let's stick with them.
Okay, Leonard. That's not campaign literature. Thank you. I will. Thank you. Right. Yeah. Very good. Very good.
You have all the questions lined up, right?
I do.
Okay. I didn't send you any, but that's fine. It's going well.
I think so.
I would like to be here tomorrow night, but I got a Master Gardener meeting tomorrow night, so I've got a conflict. And I have more questions. I have more questions about that.
You can watch. You can watch it online.
I can. Yes, I will do that. A good crowd.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's 5 or 6 minutes left.
Oh, that's fine. I was waiting for that.
I think this is going to be fun.
Yeah. We'll see.
It's going to be interesting to gauge how responses from candidates are going to be for some of them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's get started again. You're first. Okay. Excuse me. Excuse me. We're going to get started again. I may need one, Leonard. Okay, a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. A reminder to myself. Excuse me. Thank you, Leonard. Okay, a couple of housekeeping things. To myself and to the candidates. Don't lean back in your chairs because you get farther away from the microphones and it's difficult for folks to hear. And clearly, the folks who came here want to be able to hear you, so please pay attention to that. Our next round of questions, we will start with Roy. He drew the lot to start first. These questions are going to be more targeted. Some of them are going to be personal questions, that things you've said on the campaign trail. So we're just going to get started. Again, the rules are you have 2 minutes to respond to the question. I'll use Roy as an example. He'll have 2 minutes to respond to this question. If one of the other candidates wants to rebut what he says or add something, they have 1 minute. Then we'll go to the next question, which would be to Bob. Okay? All right, so let's get started. Roy, you've often mentioned reviving an industrial commission to help attract economic growth in Jefferson City. You did earlier today. Recently, the inability of the city to attract large industry has been criticized as an outdated approach to economic development. Your idea of recreating an industrial commission seems to fly in the face of that logic. So explain to me how an industrial commission operates in today's economic climate.
I think that's a good question, and now you guys can hear me. Good, because I was on the council twice, actually 8 years, and it seemed like we had better mic systems back then. It seemed like we could lean back and you could still hear us. I still have faith in people, Gary, irrespective of what particular, if that comes down as a poll or however that was documented or qualified. But I think we can put strong people together, strong people that are bright, that are in the that are leading. They have a stake in the game. They have skin in the game, and I think we can put those people together in regard to maybe put them in a room. However it is, we meet on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, a bi-weekly basis, and get some of the great ideas. And when a lead comes in regard, hey, somebody's looking at Jefferson City, I think we have to actively pursue that. What is that going to take? Maybe it's going to take literally getting in your car and going to see them, or that, and bringing them back. I mean, I am prepared to do that. I mean, this is not, I'm not going to take this lightly. This is not going to be an advocation for me. This is going to be a vocation, and this is going to be, it's going to be work, but it's going to be something it's in my heart to do this for Jefferson City. It's going to be a challenge, but I'm not going to approach this with a defeatist attitude. And in regard to that, flying into the face of what I just stated, I'm not sure I agree with that. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bob, you use the slogan, "We are one," beg your pardon? Oh, did anyone want to respond to that? All right. Thank you, Mark, for keeping me on track here.
Could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Would he see that as replacing our current economic development model or supplementing it? And that economic development model being using the Chamber of Commerce as our economic development tool?
Bob, thank you for that question. I actually see them working in concert, just kind of giving them some help, and giving them some fresh help, some people with that have the generally when you volunteer something like that, you're really going to put your heart in it. It's not going to be dull and mundane, and that's how I see it, working in concert with the chamber.
And by extension, I'll jump onto Bob's question. So you would be the one appointing the members of the Industrial Commission? How would that work?
Well, I think we'd go out and search the community, and it would be something, I wouldn't be on the commission, but I would attend all the meetings. That's the way it would work. And somebody very, very active and be willing to take advice, take counsel, and act to that, act to those thoughts and those recommendations.
But ultimately, I guess to my more pointed question, how would that industrial commission be formed? Who chooses who these guys and gals are?
Well, I think that would be something, that would be the mayor's choice. I think that's the way I would pursue it.
Okay. Any other comments from the other candidates? Okay. Second question. Bob, you use the slogan, "We're one community." In recent years, the community has shown, though, that it doesn't always operate in that spirit of unity. Looking back at debates over transit, the conference center, and trash, the community and the council that you served on was far from unified. How specifically would you work to achieve that unity within the community?
Well, I think that I think you've correctly identified the situation, and it's something, I guess, that I became aware of sitting in meetings on the transit issue. and listening to people talk about their desperate need for transit. And it occurred to me as I sat there that the rest of the community wasn't there to hear that conversation. They weren't there to hear those people make their case. And so I proposed at that time that we form a community group made up of representatives of the business associations and the schools and the business people whose employees ride the bus, people who healthcare providers that where people are riding the bus to get to the healthcare provider, because a lot of those people don't ride the bus themselves, and that we do it in public. We do it in such a way that the community become aware of the need. Because far too often we sit in our own business groups, or we sit in our, whatever group we might be a part of, and we talk about what our personal interests are. So I believe that if we're going to move Jefferson City forward, we need to move it forward as one community. And I don't just mean within our city limits. I'm talking about outside in the county as well. Because I believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. And if you do something good on the south side of Jefferson City, it's good for the downtown. And if you do something on the west side, it's good for the east side. And I believe that it's time that we start getting together, we start working together. And the way I would do that is I would, whether it be ad hoc and just be for short term, or whether it would end up being a long term thing, but I would want to ask every business group in town, the schools, higher education, Lincoln, and to send a representative, and I don't have a name for it yet, but I'm going to call it the Mayor's Roundtable, and that we all get together, we meet in public, and we identify the 4 or 5 key things that we need to focus on and that we need to move forward and improve.
All right, thank you. Leonard, yes.
When they had the discussion on the trash, I went to 4 different meetings over here in the hallway, and I was told to keep my mouth shut. I was told to keep my mouth shut. I've done more in recycling since 1964 than any Allied Republic waste has ever done. And the man that was in charge of it, Charlie Lansford, didn't he retire with a big settlement check? Yeah, he took off just as soon as he got that contract signed. Why didn't he stay and see how it worked? And our council didn't listen. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to respond? Okay. Leonard, you've been criticized for running for every possible open office, from President of the United States to Mayor of Jefferson City. How can you assure critics that you're serious about serving the citizens of Jefferson City?
Okay, well, this goes back 12 years ago. My forefather was Rufus Putnam. I tried getting in the Sons of American Revolution. I was told I was a liar because my great aunt was a Daughters of American Revolution. I had the paperwork. They put it on hold and held on to my $100 for 6 years. Now that's supposed to be not a private organization, but yet there's people in this that was a city councilman was holding it on over my head. This country was started in Jamestown, Virginia, by Peter LeHue. Peter LeHue was my 9th grandfather back, and Peter LeHue II was my 8th grandfather back, which I have the Bible with who I had run against for U.S. Congress, which was Ike Skelton. And Ike Skelton, before he passed away, and his family does know that I was related to them, and he was the first Presbyterian preacher in the state of the United States today. That is my destiny. I want to run for office because I have gave up part of my life for my U.S. government through the military. I have Agent Orange that I caught, and I can't even get the first dime for getting Agent Orange because I caught it in the United States. I didn't catch it in Vietnam. I did not catch it in Korea. Me and my wife both have worked with the U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate to get this accomplished, where the Korean veterans all the way back to 1951 are getting their Agent Orange disease. I'm an arguer, and They will not let me have an honest debate. I've never been allowed to go to an honest debate. The governor even stopped me from going to an honest debate up in Columbia when I was running for governor. Now, what is honesty? I see it in this hallway right here, right now. I made a comment to the two mediators about it. Rules are rules, and they're being broken right now, so good night.
Anyone wish to respond?
Leonard, don't leave.
Okay, we're going on to question number 4. Carrie, some have criticized you for being too focused on growth of the downtown to the exclusion of representing the rest of the city. What would you say to those critics?
Thank you. Yes, I've had a big role in the success and growth of our downtown. Over the years, we've come a long way. There were a lot of vacant buildings a few years ago, and I think it's proven that what I can do to an area that needs attention. I've been able to work together with groups, work together with the Downtown Association. I was president for 2 years, was able to serve on the board and make things happen and make it a beautiful downtown we can all be proud of. So yes, I do have a business there. I've grown up having a family business there. So yes, I do feel it's important. Also, though, I think it should be important to everybody in the community. It is a community asset. It's the heart of our community, and it's where our visitors come. We are the state capital. Our downtown is located right within the capital district, so I think it's important that our downtown looks nice, and I'm proud that I had a role in that. So I think I'm proven what I can do, what I can accomplish, and if I can take what I've started in the downtown and spread that to the entire community, that is my goal. There are a lot of projects and ways that we've worked together and done development very smartly, and I would like to see that happen throughout the community. When you look at retail development, there are other areas in our town that need it, and I know what has made that work. And I think we can, even though we might say that our downtown work is complete, there's areas in Capitol Avenue and MSP and other areas that need attention. And when I do hear that question, because that is a concern, I can assure you, when I represented the 4th Ward, which is the southwest part of Jefferson City, I was consistently meeting with neighbors in their homes. It's one of the things I enjoyed most about serving on city council. The phone calls, the emails, the questions. It was on a consistent basis. Almost daily, I took phone calls, and I prided myself on working with neighbors, bringing them together with city staff. But those are things that the public doesn't see, so I appreciate this forum so I can have a chance to say that, because that's probably the biggest thing I did as a council person, was meeting with the neighbors and finding solutions to issues all over the city. And I'll tell you what I heard the most is people coming to me and saying, I know you're not my councilman, but here's what I'd like to say. And I pride myself that I always followed through with those concerns, no matter where they were in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Edie. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to say one thing. I've always said, and I've been asked many times, questions about, my relationship with Carrie when I was on the council, and I always said that she was probably one of the best councilmen at serving her members of any. That she was high energy, high enthusiasm, and what have you. But I can't let it pass that she received calls from all over the city, because we all do. We all get calls, and we all service our constituents. So that's just something you do if you're a council person.
Okay, thank you. 1 minute.
I would say that is true, Bob, and I do appreciate that. And I hope I didn't say that I was the only one who received that. I'm sure that we all did, but I often heard that. Thank you.
Any other? Okay. Edie, some have questioned how you could serve as mayor when you openly ignore the city's laws regarding mandatory trash service. What would you say to those critics?
Yes, I'm in violation of the code of the City of Jefferson for mandatory trash service. I have been on record to say that if the prosecutor wants to issue a summons for me to appear in city court, I would be willing to come down here and stand before the municipal judge and plead guilty, because I am. But with a big B, I think the code that was created by the former council people is incorrect. I do not believe that you can force people to buy something that they do not want or need or have a desire to have. Be it as it is, I know it's a violation, and if I saw Brian Stumpy in here a little while ago, and if he wants to issue a summons for me to come before the court, I'd be more than willing to do that. But right now, I feel like my constitutional rights were violated by ordinances that were created, as Leonard so graciously said a few minutes ago, not right, not right. Even though the council passed it and the citizens did vote for it, you need to realize that I am a strong woman and I'm not going to do something that I don't want to do, and that's buy trash service. Now, if I had trash all over my yard, the code enforcement people could come to me and cite me with existing codes that exist for that kind of a problem. So, sum it up, I am in violation, issue a summons for my arrest, I'll come down here and appear before the municipal judge.
Anyone else wish to say anything? Bob?
Well, Edie's a good friend, and I don't want to be argumentative, but I just wonder what other ordinances that are passed that would be all right for other citizens to ignore.
Any other comments?
May I respond back?
Yes, you may.
I agree, Bob, with what you are saying, but in this situation, I'm going to stand by my right as a citizen. One other thing, if that trash stuff would have been made a city public utility, then I would be taking part in it very openly and very freely.
Gary? I'd just like to say that what the trash service was before, it was pretty economical in terms of taking a bag and using it, and some people were only using 2 or 3 bags a week, so that was something that we were very familiar with and something we liked, so that's something that I thought worked very well, so I know what Edie's saying. Sometimes it's just tough to have that stuff thrown down your throat.
Okay. All right, let's go on to the next question. This will go to Roy. Some mayoral candidates have said they would like to increase transparency at City Hall. How transparent do you believe city government is currently, and does it need to be improved? If so, how would you do that?
I think we can all move forward with improvement. We have open meetings here. I think most of the time when we do have executive session, it has to deal with personnel or contracts, so that's something that you probably can't open up at that point. I think a mayor that's the face of the city, somebody that's an ambassador, that absolutely gets out in the city, goes to a lot of functions, is somebody that totally cares. Just totally cares about the citizens, and it showed it showed by your character, your demeanor, your behavior, and I believe it's something that you can do to foster trust, and that's done by design, that's done by habit, and it's done by character, and I believe that's something that we can do to improve this. Yes, we can always do better. Am I going to heap aspersions and criticize what's going on at this point? No, because I don't have any facts to substantiate that. But yes, we can do better, and I would make a concerted effort to do better.
Okay. Would anyone else like to respond to that question? Bob?
One of the things that I take great pride in introducing to the council, in fact, I introduced it in my first year, and we didn't make any progress with it, and I brought it up again the first year of Mayor Strump's term, and then in the second year we managed to get it, and that was electronic records keeping for the city. And my primary goal in doing that was to make it possible for people to be able to access city records minutes of council meetings and so forth from home. That you can get on a computer and actually have that. You don't have to pay a sunshine request or something like that. So transparency in city government's always been a goal of mine. I pushed hard to get that through. The rest of the council saw the value of it and voted for it as well. So I would try very hard to have maximum transparency. You do have to have some closed sessions. I do believe that some things should be closed, personnel and contracts and things like that, but where possible, let the people know what's going on.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to respond to that question? Okay. Bob, currently, the Jefferson City Area Chamber of Commerce is contracted by the city and county for economic development services. Do you believe the chamber is the right avenue for economic development, or is there another option you believe would work better?
I'm willing to look at other options, but in my mind, from what I've seen so far, I think the chamber is the right model. I think it's worked well. If you look back in the history of our city, the initial organization that came together to get a bridge across the Missouri River. And the chamber's been working ever since. And I don't know how in the world you would replace all of the volunteer work that the members of the chamber do. The monies that the businesses contribute when we want to invite someone to come, a business to come here and tour our city. The chamber can get on the telephone and call local businesses and get them to pay for a meal, pay for transportation. If they need to get a group of managers together, the factory managers here in town together to meet with a group, they can do that. And not only that, but if you look at the recent report that the chamber gave us on economic development, the city and the council, or the county together, put about $335,000 into funding the chamber, and yet they spent over $500,000 in economic development, and that extra money came from chamber membership. And so I think we're getting a lot of effort for our money. Has there always been success? I don't know how you actually measure. I don't think that if a business comes to town or not is the only measurement that you can use, because there are a lot of things that determine whether a business ultimately decides to come here. So what I measure is the effort. Are they contacting businesses? Are they sending out the materials? Are they going to the meetings? Are they making the effort? And I think they are. And so does it need to be tweaked? Probably. And if I'm elected mayor, we will have a conversation about that. In fact, the chamber's already kind of started that conversation already. So I like the model.
Okay. Carrie.
Thank you. I believe we need to fix the perception in the community that the money that is spent on the chamber for economic development is not money well spent if we're going to continue to do so. I know there may be other entities, and that's something that might need to be explored, but I do think that especially in the recent years, there have been things that the public is unsure of, and even the council. And it is hard to measure economic development, and I realize that, but I think it is also gives us an opportunity as a council to decide what specifically we want. And I would like to see the chamber making an effort to come forward maybe at each meeting to give us an announcement of what they're doing and what's happening. I think we can have more frequent communication rather than the annual report that the council typically gets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to respond to that?
We are getting a quarterly report rather than an annual report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next question goes to Carrie. Infrastructure in some parts of the city is crumbling. Absentee landlords have control over many deficient structures in the city. Code enforcement is unable to prevent blight. Do you see this as a problem to be addressed? If so, what would you do to address this issue?
Absolutely, it's a problem, it's an issue. When I was on city council, it was one of the biggest things I dealt with was code enforcement issues and properties that were not following code. And with the limited resources that we have in code enforcement, it is important that we are targeted in what we're doing, and that we don't have to send our code enforcement officials there on a consistent basis. We need to be, I think, a little more proactive, so some of the properties don't get to the condition they are before. We need to be a lot more active before that happens. There are some properties that have been well beyond their years, and we should have been active in having a role in keeping them up to speed well before now. I know there's some houses that are almost falling down, and it's not fair to the neighbors. I would like to be a little more stern. I think I've been involved in situations where the city has been very agreeable to allowing a property owner 30 more days, and it becomes a year, and the property is still in the decrepit condition, and it becomes a hazard, and it's not fair to the neighbors. So we need to have a more active role. I would also like to utilize resources such as the Historic Preservation Commission, which is a commission of the city, and also Historic City of Jefferson, because some of those people have resources where possibly we can approach some of these landlords that either are not interested in fixing up their building and decide what is it going to take to move that house into others' hands and to make those improvements. And if they're not, they need to know very clearly that we have codes for a reason, and if they don't follow the code, there will be consequences, because we can't have our community fall into such disrepair. Thank you.
Any responses to that? Bob?
This is a very, very difficult thing to deal with. The way code enforcement works, when someone gets cited or posted, they have a period of time to respond, and then once they respond, they have additional time, and one thing another. So it really drags on and drags on. And despite what some people may think, our code enforcement people aren't ogres. They really don't like to have to come down on people. One of the things that I have promoted, and I met with the city attorney and I met with our code enforcement folks, and I said, let's consider shifting from code enforcement to through the enforcement through the judicial system, so that we write tickets instead of posting code, so that people appear in municipal court and they actually get fined. And there is an ordinance that says that if they receive 3 tickets in a year, that makes them a habitual offender, and they are subject to up to a year in jail and a $1,000 fine. So there are some teeth. It's just difficult to use them because it is subject to the judge and the prosecutor once it gets in court.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go to the next question. Edie, some say Jefferson City does not get its fair share of the county's road and bridge tax. Do you believe the allocation to be fair? If not, what would you do to address the issue?
When I served on the city council, I always thought that was true, and I still believe it today, that we all pay that county road and bridge tax, but the citizens of Jefferson City, who make up the greatest majority of the population of the county, sometimes do not get their fair share. But I will say today that probably has gotten a little bit better with joint efforts taken on by the county and the city to make improvements to the roads and bridges that serve the whole community. So I stand, as I was 8 years ago, to say, thought we were getting not the fair deal, but today I think that's gotten better. And I know if I was elected mayor, I would be at the commissioner's desk, and we would work together on a lot of projects, because the citizens of Jefferson City provide all of the entities that the people that come into our community to work. I mean, if you're coming in from Wardsville or Taos to work in Jefferson City and you have trouble, it's us that respond to that. By all means, we respond, but we need to definitely look at sharing and share alike. I don't think there's a law that says we have to not do that, because we're all as citizens, we're paying that bit, citizens of Jefferson City, we're paying that road and bridge tax. So in the past, wasn't too good. It's gotten better.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to respond to that question? Bob?
You know I would. I think our relationship has improved so much from when the first year I was on the council to now. And a lot of that credit goes to John Landwehr. He reached out to the commission. A lot of it goes to Mayor Strump. I hope some of it goes to me. I've got a great relationship with the current commissioners, had a good relationship with Mr. Ellinger. The cooperative projects that we're doing are a great step forward, but not only do we have bridge and road money that's maybe we should get more of, but we also, there is a tax that is collected for law enforcement. And you know, I would think that at some point in time, I would be interested in talking about maybe a larger contribution for the 911 program, maybe even a larger contribution in some other fashion as well. So we are part of the county too.
Okay, thank you. Roy?
Gary, I was thinking that we have a new, of course, we have a new presiding commissioner, and Sam Bishop is very approachable. So I think there can be a lot of things done with Sam, whether it be at his store, which I ended up with a bunch of shirts by going over the last time. But he's very approachable, and I do see this getting better and better and better. I mean, that's a very simple statement, but it's a factual statement.
Okay. All right, next question. We'll go to Roy. Lincoln University and the city have historically been two separate economic engines. What specific steps will you take in your first year of office to get LU into the community and the community into LU?
I would personally spend a lot of time with the president, or the people that are involved, the people that are in charge. I think that it would be that would be one of the items that we can do in a process of somebody willing to work 40 to 50 hours a week, spending time with them, improving relationships, and of course having dialogue. And I think as a result of that, you can always, I mean, you can always accomplish a lot with positiveness. You can accomplish a lot by being amiable, congenial, and I really believe that. And I think that works in concert with being, what I said earlier, the ambassador, the face of the city, just every day working towards that goal, irrespective of what it is. But I got a lot of stamina. I got a lot of endurance. I got a lot of fervor. I've got just a whole lot of esprit de corps, and it's something that the jobs that I've had over the years, it seems like I've had to take my whole being and just invest it into that. Whatever I did to the fullest extent. And I had some great adventures, but it took a lot of it took a lot of energy, and it took a lot of focus and to do that. And I'm willing to take all of that and put it directly into here, irrespective of what it does, irrespective of what it takes. But that, to answer your question, I would be spending a lot of time to see. A lot of it's got to do with just, I think, basic relationships, improve them, grow them, and I believe as a result of that, we can really we can do very well with that.
Carrie?
Thank you. I've proposed having a student liaison from Lincoln University serve on our city council. Of course, they would be a non-voting member, but somebody that could come to every council meeting. They could either be elected by the students and serve the entire year, or we could have a different student every month, and they could be here and make a report at every meeting of what's happening at Lincoln University, and they can take back to campus what's happening here. We need a direct link to Lincoln University, and I think having a student liaison is a great opportunity, and I would do that immediately when I become mayor. Thank you.
Bob?
One of the first things that I would do, I know that Dr. Rome, who I have a great relationship with, I believe, is in the process of developing their enrollment plan. And one of the things that I would want to do is take a look at that with him, along with him, and try to figure out where and how the city could work with them to help them increase their enrollment. I would like to see the committee, the community embrace Lincoln University as our university. I don't know how, but I would like to see us increase attendance at their activities, their football games, and sports activities and so forth. So I think we just need to have an attitude adjustment, a readjustment maybe, as to the idea that Lincoln University is our university, and that together we can both grow and prosper, the university and the community.
Okay. Edie.
I want to put up the yellow caution flag here in a situation that is about to occur, which I am for, but I believe there has to be great caution in the proposed recreation center on Lincoln's campus with the Parks and Rec Commission, which is part of our government here in Jefferson City, even though they have their own little tax structure that we pay sales tax on. My caution flag is to the powers that be that are going to make that decision. Make sure that the Ts are dotted and the Is are crossed in regards to who's going to run it and who's going to pay for it.
Bob?
And I can assure Edie that Bill Lockwood and Dr. Rome and his staff are working very hard to make sure that all those I's are dotted and those T's are crossed. One of the things that I suggested, and I've been told that it's going to be incorporated, is a section that will deal with how we break up if that should happen. Not because I don't think it's going to work, because my hope is that Lincoln University is going to grow so much that they're going to come to us one day and say, hey, we would really like to have that building all to ourselves so we can use it for our athletic department or increase our physical education department or something like that. And so I anticipate that in the future that they may very well want to come to us and say, hey, we'd like to buy it from you. So I've asked that they put that language in there so that if we do need to have a breakup, that we can do it in a structured way and in a way that's fair to all.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Last question. In today's political climate, the use of state and federal grants has often been criticized as fiscally irresponsible when the state and the federal government are facing budget constraints. What is your position about accepting state or federal grants for city services and projects? In today's political climate, the use of state and federal grants has often been criticized as fiscally irresponsible when the state and the federal government are facing budget constraints.
Well, I've already had my share, right? Is that it? Okay. Well, I look at it this way. There are so many things that we have done that have been 80% funded by a state or federal grant, and we couldn't have done them without that. My personal preference would be that we don't take money from the federal government. And when I first came on the council, I guess that was kind of, you know, I was really principled then, I guess, but I've become practical now. And I understand that the things that our folks want, if we're going to provide them, we have to find funding where we can. And so, you know, there's probably not a week goes by that we don't accept some kind of a federal grant of one kind or another. So the grants that are tough for me and the ones that I have a hard time voting for are the ones that say, okay, we'll pay for it this year and maybe next year, but then the third or fourth year you have to fund it all yourself. And that happens a lot of times with personnel. The police department will come to us frequently and say, we can get this grant and we can add 3 officers for 3 years and they'll pay for it 100% for 3 years, but after the third year you have to keep it for a fourth year or maybe 5 years, and then after 5 years you don't necessarily have to. But once you have established that situation where you have, you know, you've hired 3 or 4 people and now they've got a job and their families are relying on that job and everything else. So those are the hard grants for me, are the ones that comes with the strings attached that says you've got future obligations. But for me to take 80% to go out here and build a city street or something, I don't have any trouble doing that.
Okay. Carrie?
And it would depend on the project, but I also believe that the grants and incentives can be helpful, and there are times when if we don't act on them, other communities might, and so it would be a disservice if we did not act on that when we could use that to our benefit when other communities might pick up where we haven't taken that opportunity. But we'd have to keep the budget in mind and make sure it's not something that we were not able to fund into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Roy?
Gary, I think that if we were to be the first to say, you know, we're not going to take any more of your money, we're not going to take a dime, And then if everyone would do that, of course, we could stop it. But in the process of doing that, we're going to deprive our community. I mean, that's just the nuts and bolts of it. So it would be very difficult to decline that. If everyone else would, that'd be great, but it's not going to work that way, so I would have to be in favor of that.
Edie?
Common sense will tell you that the money that you're talking about is all of our money, because we're paying taxes to the federal government, to the city, to the county. You know, you go into a store and you buy something, that sales tax is there. So common sense will tell you that's all of our money, but I'm going to have to kind of agree with Roy. It's hard to swallow not taking the money because you feel in your heart that it is your money. But man, when you got to deal with the federal government on some of this stuff, it is.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we're at the point of the program where we're in our closing statements. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes to share his or her thoughts. We'll begin with our regular order. Roy, you begin in the order.
Is this it? I'm done after this?
Yes, sir.
I can leave?
We will turn your microphone off.
Oh, thank you, Gary. There's been a lot of things said the last 2 months. Actually, there's been, I think we've had 6 or 7 of these. And in the process, a lot of us have been on the same page because we have the same things in mind. Many of us have the same things that we'd like to see accomplished. We're probably going to have to go out a little differently. And this is, how are you going to facilitate it? How are you going to effectuate it? Sometimes you can extrapolate by, this is what I'm going to do based upon what I've done. And I think that's a good measure to use. There's various ways that our personalities will affect this. I believe in one of the finest and greatest assets we have is our city employees. And this may not mean a lot to a lot of folks, but it's kind of important to me. If I'm elected, I'm going to personally meet every one of these people on a personal basis. There's 400 and some of them, and I'm going to record their name, and I'm not going to forget them. That's the kind of personal feelings and character I will bring to this. And one other thing I'd like to say, without strong leaders, we're more inclined to be influenced by destructive circumstances or deceptive people. So we have to be very strong in what we do. I'm a U.S. Navy vet. At age 44, I took a leave of absence. I went into the Marine Corps as a corpsman. I've got 8 years as a city councilman, 4 on the east, 4 on the west. I've represented law firms and throughout various parts of Missouri. So I think I have a great experience in regard to the way I want to effectuate this. It's going to be a 40 or 50 hour a week job for Roy Wiesman. Now, it's not always. I look at it this way: it's not always the destination. It's the process that you use to achieve it. So I think it's going to be amiable. I think I'm going to leave a great footprint in regard to as we go through the process of achieving this. And I'm going to put my heart into this. I'm going to put everything I can bring about to put into this. And I know that one of the things that I think is very important is to have an open door policy. That also adds to transparency. Open door policy, you can come in, you can speak to the mayor, and anybody can speak to the mayor, irrespective of who it is. And that's the kind of way, obviously we're going to be putting people together. We got state, we got local, we got county, and there's a lot to be done with the governor. There's a lot to be done with the leadership of the legislature, and I'm going to pursue that very diligently. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob? Speak. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. What I was trying to say was I want to thank both of you. You've done a great job. I want to thank the audience for being attentive and and very polite in their attention. Citizens of Jefferson City have a responsibility on April the 7th to choose wisely the person who will lead our city for the next 4 years. I trust they will not make their choice based on who has lived here longer, who loves the city the most, who is most handsome or pretty, who they most like to have as a friend, or who has the best Facebook page. I trust they will look at each of us and evaluate our leadership abilities and history. I hope they will ask themselves which candidate has demonstrated leadership throughout his or her life and has a history of being chosen by his or her peers to be the leader of the group. We need a leader that will work to bring people together to focus our efforts as one community, to create opportunities for all of us to prosper. We need a leader that understands the challenges businesses face and will work to lessen the burden imposed by government red tape. We need a leader that understands how to communicate, one that will listen, learn, and lead. My life experiences have prepared me to be that person, to bring leadership, communication, business growth, and development. I hope you agree. I hope you will vote for Bob Scrivener for mayor on April the 7th. Thank you.
Carrie.
Thank you. I spent 6 years here serving on the city council, and during that time I'm proven that I stood up for what I believed to be right and tried to be the voice of the constituents and the people as much as I possibly could. Examples are when former city administrator years ago, Steve Rasmussen, lost credibility and respect in our community. I was the lone vote, 9-1, to say openly in public, they didn't close the meeting. I said to everybody, we had lost faith in our city administrator. And he was eventually fired, but at that moment it was a 9-1. I stood up for what I thought was right in the community and what I had heard from most people saying that situation should not have happened. Then I turned around, and when the new city administrator came on board, I was the lone vote that said we should do a national search. That didn't happen. Like I said, I was the lone vote, but after the city administrator, Nathan Nicholas, came on board, again, I was the lone vote not to fire him during a routine evaluation in which he was fired. So that is a situation where I can assure you I would have respect for the situation for our employees. So I've proven that as your mayor, I will act. I will not be afraid. I want to bring that's my role as a council. As a mayor, I want to build some consensus among the council. I want them to know it's okay for us to work together. We'll accomplish great things if we can work together, and that's the kind of mayor I want to be. I will be responsive. That's how I grew up. I learned it from my grandfather. He came to this country as a young boy, as an orphan. He worked hard and taught me that if I work hard, I can achieve the American dream, and I want to bring that to the city leadership. My grandfather always enjoyed talking politics. I know that's where I got it from, for any of you who remember speaking with George Turgeon. And I remember growing up and seeing on his wall a picture. He had written a letter to the older President George Bush, and he got a response, and he put on his wall, taped to the wall, that response he got from the president. And it always reminded me just how important it is, first of all, to speak out if you think something is important. I don't care if you go to the top, that's the way to do it. And also the piece about having a response, and I always respond, and I know that it's important to have that voice. I want to create a vision and a plan. Something I'm very enthused about is the potential we have in our community for MSP, the Missouri State Penitentiary site. I'm tired of hearing the words, we can't do that because. I don't want to tolerate that. I want to have a jar in the office that says every time you say that, you're going to put $10 in the jar, because I want to say, how can you do that? Let's make this happen if there's enough interest in our community. And MSP is a big one. Whether or not it's a meeting space, whether or not it's whatever asset it's going to be, that's on target to bring 25,000 visitors to our community this year. So we need to be taking an active role as a mayor and as a council. At heart, I'm a West End girl. I know we talk about downtown a lot, but I grew up on the West End, 3rd Ward, and I represented 4th Ward, all on the West End. So I want to make this community better in all directions, all around. So I ask for your vote on April 7th, and I appreciate and thank everybody for being here tonight. Thank you.
Edie.
Is this 5 minutes?
3.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you to the newspaper and to the chamber for hosting us. And I can say that it's been a great pleasure to be with these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Mr. Groner. The 6 of us have had a lot of fun on the campaign trail, and we've been respectful of each other, and we've brought laughs to each other's face and in due time, and we've been serious. And ever since I was a 6th grader, a chubby little girl out at St. Joseph's Cathedral School, pushing the merry-go-round was my task by the boys who were bullies, okay? And I learned from that early age on that you have to be strong and you don't put up with that kind of foolishness. Well, lo and behold, I also realized that I was being taught by ladies in long black dresses with white things around their head that came from Ireland. And none of us at that school at that time in 1960 could understand a word they were saying. So I thought it'd be appropriate to raise my hand one day in school and say to those sisters from Ireland, "Sister, we don't understand what you're saying. Why don't you let me come up here and talk to the class?" And my favorite class was civics. And Sister said, "Well, if you think you can do that, I will admit that I'm not the best person in the world to be teaching civics because I'm from Ireland." Well, I said, "You step over here to the side and let me take over and let me have the teacher's manual, and we'll get through this without any trouble at all." So ever since I was a little girl in the 6th grade, I've wanted to be a leader. And not the smartest kid in the class, but I could open up my mouth and speak in a dignified manner and show that my classmates that I could be their leader. And I want to do that if I'm elected mayor. This community has been very good to myself and my family, and I want to reciprocate by being the friendly face of Jefferson City to welcome newcomers and everybody else, and to herd around the 10 people that sit in this council chamber to make our community a better place to live, work, and play. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, on behalf of the News Tribune and the Chamber, I would like to thank the candidates for participating in the forum, as well as those attending the forum tonight, the volunteers and the video team that helped make this forum possible, and the city for allowing us to use this room for this event. Lastly, we would encourage all residents to exercise their right to vote and go to the polls April 7th. Good night. Thank you. Thank you.